Hey guys, welcome back. It's Herb here. Today's going to be the second part of the safety video that I started doing yesterday on the twins' birthday. I'm not going to try and make this, an hour long or nothing like that, but there's a lot of important parts and that I really want to go over with you guys. And like I said before, this is directed towards my boys too. Being it's their first year out, racing their own cars, their first racing season. So, like I said, but there's probably going to be other people out there that's watching these too that, might be able to get, some pretty good information from it. And, it could save lives, guys. It really could. And that's the biggest part of why I wanted to do these, the safety video is, safety, it's nothing that you can cheap out on or cut corners on, stuff like that. But I want to give you a little bit of a background on how I grew up, and how I got into the car world. My dad, and my grandfather and my whole dad's side of the family, they were all into the Mopar muscle car era, the 60s and 70s. My dad had Cudas and Challengers and Chargers, and, I grew up around, with fast cars. And my grandpa, after my grandma passed away, my grandpa ended up moving way up north. And he would come and pick me up every summer and to go spend the summer with him up north. And, he would let me drive the back roads. He had an old Chevy 3/4 ton, the old Granny Gear 4-speed, and I was only 12 years old. And I was out cruising the back roads with him. I'd drive him into town to McDonald's and go get groceries. And, my grandfather, he was from the Depression. He fought in the World War, and he was one of them old timers that he made you understand. He told you how it was, and he wasn't gonna steer you in the wrong direction. I mean, he told you how it was and how it was gonna be, and that was my life lesson. I learned so much from my grandfather and from my dad too. And so when I, grew up and started having a family of my own, I started instilling this into my own children. If you want something, you got to work for it. You learn to respect your elders. You have table manners, stuff like that. That's just how I was raised. There was a time in my life where my kids, dad's mean, and dad's a prick, and this, that, and the other. But now that they're older, they see, what my purposes was, and in doing that. But that's how, I taught my boys, and my daughter too. She loves, she's into dirt bikes and quads, and if she had a chance to get a race car, and and I'm sure she might even want to go, I'd let her take my car down the track. So this applies to her too. So I've taught my kids from a young age about the factors of vehicles, and my kids never got their license until they were 18, all of them. And that's not by my doing or mom's doing. That was on their own free will. I mean, that's when they felt comfortable enough to go get them. That's when they did it. I mean, we didn't hold them back from doing it. They took driver's training at 16 or 15, and they just didn't want to get their license until they were 16. But from that, from when they started getting, on the boy side, from when they started showing interest for race cars and speed, and I started making sure they know up here that speed kills. You have to respect vehicles. And I don't care who you are, um, you know, speed kills, bottom line. I mean, if you do not respect the race car or understand, how it works, and it will kill you, bottom line. And I've taught my boys that. And, and they're very intelligent, and they know, they've been driving, for 4 years now. And they've always had, dirt bikes and quads and snowmobiles and stuff like that. And they know about the speed factor. So, that's number one in my book. You have to make sure, if you're a parent, that your loved one is starting to get into the racing season. It's your job to make sure that they understand the fundamentals of speed, So, that was the number one thing in mind. But another thing I told them, and I've taught them, that there's a time and a place for everything. Don't be a show off. Know when to lift. If they haven't got to race down the track, but I'm sure my oldest boy, he's 28, and he's had his SS Camaro for a couple years, so he knows what I'm talking about. But Tyler, with the G body, this is going to be his real first hot rod, and he's smart. I'm not worried in any sense like that where he's going to be out being dumb about it. But that's one of the biggest things that they have to understand is, don't be a show off. There's a time and a place for everything. Know when to let out of it. So, if you get one of your buddies that, oh, come on, do a burnout. Well, that's all well, that's good. Do a burnout. It's, when I'm saying don't show off, I'm basically stating you don't need to do 170 mile an hour for 3 miles down the expressway, or down a city street, where there's other people. You have to respect the lives of other people and yourself. So, that's what I mean by showing off. And, and then there's a time and a place for everything. When we build these cars, we're not building them for top speed, the 5 mile endurance race. We're building them for 8th mile and quarter mile racing. And other than that, they're just an everyday cruising car. That's what we're building Tyler's Monte Carlo for. It's going to be a cruiser, but on the weekend, if he wants to go with his brother to the racetrack, he can. And I've taught them guys that, and that's going to be a big thing that parents need to teach their kids, and the kids need to understand. And if you don't respect other people and respect speed, you have no right to even be in a race car. That's my opinion. I was a kid once too, and I've done some pretty dumb shit. But like I said, my grandpa always taught me, from when I was little and started driving. He drove it in my head, this is a machine. It can kill you. It will kill you if you ain't smart about it. So, ever since I was a kid, that was my mindset. And, and I love speed, racing, and stuff. But like I said, there's a time and a place for everything. But now that we got that out of the way, I wanted to go over ways to, make yourself safe and your vehicle safe, that you cannot skip out on these steps, guys. I don't care if it's a 16-second car, a 20-second car, a 10-second car, an 850. This applies to all in my book. I mean, number one, if you're going to be on that racetrack, you must wear a helmet. Like I said, I don't care if it's a 20-second car. Some of the racetracks, you got to go so fast in order to wear a helmet, or or a fire retardant coat. But my family, if you're gonna go to the racetrack, you know, you got to have a helmet. Bottom line. Um, and another thing, as far as that goes, a drive shaft safety loop. That's a must in my book too, as far as safety goes for vehicle. You know, and they're cheap. They're easy to put on. Helmets, you can go down to the thrift store and pick up a DOT helmet. Who cares if you don't look the coolest in it or whatever? You know, you get loose sideways and you smack a wall and bust your head off the side of the window. You'll think that, you know, thrift store for that helmet. Um, and another thing that I do, you know, it might be harder for other people to do if they already have a vehicle, but say for instance, like the Monte Carlo, you know, that's a new build. And my son's Camaro, Cody, you know, the SS Camaro, to where, you know, we're not looking to set the world on fire with it, but we're going to be putting harness bars in there, bolt-in harness bars behind the drivers, and, you know, it bolts in from side to side. That way they can get a, you know, at least a 4-point harness on. You know, that's just something that I'm going to do, and that's cheap also. I mean, you know, you can call Motion Race Works, you can call any, you know, roll bar company and pick one up, probably $100, you know, and they bolt in. That way you can unbolt it during the week if you want, and, you know, when you're cruising around, and just wear your regular seatbelt. But if you're going on the track, I highly recommend you spending that money for a harness bar at least. You know, it might not be a roll cage, but, you know, under certain speeds you have to have a, you know, cage anyway. And as time goes on with my boys, and, you know, they get faster, they will have a cage in their car after they get to that point. But, you know, you better believe that, you know, once they hit the track this year, they're going to have a helmet, they're going to have a fire retardant coat, they're going to have a harness bar, and they're going to have a drive shaft loop. Now that's just the four, you know, four of them. That's a must in my book, in my family. That's a must. Now, there's other parts that I want to get with you guys too, about your car. How do you make your car more safe? You know, the harness bar and the drive shaft loop falls under that too. You know, the helmet and the fire coat, you know, that's for personal safety, but in my book, it's all personal safety, you know. But I'm going to break this down into, you know, the car and then, you know, the person. You know, there might be people out there that can't, you know, they want to go to the track that they can't afford a harness bar right now, or a, you know, or a fire coat. You know, the single layer RJS fire coats, they're only $60, you know. So, I mean, $60 worth, you know, a little peace of mind. It is in my book. But back to the car. As far as the car goes, like on Tyler's car, we're going to have the motor, you know, the trans, everything's out of it. It's a new build. You know, Cody's car, he had the motor out. He bought that as a roller too. Excuse me. And we touched bases, and I gave him, you know, stuff to look for. You have to visually inspect your car, guys. Make sure there's no holes, open holes in your firewall. If there is, plug them up. You know, simple as that. I mean, with a piece of sheet metal, a piece of aluminum, or they even make the, you know, the factory body plugs that, you know, plug them up. Because believe it or not, you know, when you're up at temperature and you're flying down a racetrack, you know, and something happens to your fuel line that hits that header, that the difference between the outside wind pushing through your motor compartment against your firewall, it's going to be like a blowtorch blowing on the inside of your car. So, you know, our family, there will be no holes in the firewall whatsoever. So, you know, the firewall, another thing is brakes. You got to be able to stop it, guys. You know, make sure your brakes are good. You know, you don't want any worn out rotors, pads that are, damn near gone, back brake shoes that are non-existent. I've seen it. I've seen guys at the racetrack before changing out their slicks on there, and I happened to glance over, and they didn't even have back shoes on their car. Front brakes only. Now tell me if that ain't nuts. You won't catch me in a car like that. I don't give a if it's a 16-second car or not, but I've seen it. And, like I said, visually inspect, make sure that your brakes are good. Make sure your belts, your hoses, you get, you try and go to the track with some old funky hoses. A belt, I throw belts all the time. I told you guys that in the last video. A belt ain't really But the reason I said belts is because if you throw a belt, you're going to get your motor hotter. And if you don't have the proper containment system, you're going to boil over. And you know what's going to happen next? It's going to throw water on the track, under your tires. And if you're going 100, 120, 140, 150, you're in for a ride if you get water underneath them tires. That's why I said belts. Make sure your belts, your hoses, your brakes. That's just the front compartment. Tranny lines is a huge one in my book. I will not run rubber, tranny line. I've seen guys do it in the past. You won't catch me doing it. I run either the AN fitting pressurized braided line, or I'll run steel line up to my tranny cooler, and then maybe a 1-inch, 2-inch piece of high pressure fuel hose. Not no cheap hose. So now, we're working our way back. Another huge factor, guys, is tires. I've seen guys do this in the past too. They're thinking, race cars, they sit more than they actually are out doing, racing. So it's like a motorhome tire. They sit more, they tend to get dry rotted. Well, guys, I seen them, they're like, well, man, these still got a season left on them. They just got a little bit of cracks, No. I mean, people that do this kind of stuff without back brakes and cracks in their tires and shitty hoses and, tranny lines that are all rubber. Not only they don't care about their lives, they don't care about the lives that are in the people in the lane next to them either. So that's why, I wanted to do this video and make points about this. And if you guys are one of these guys on here that are watching, which I doubt, but you never know who clicks onto my channel. It's the internet. But if you're one of these guys and you're like, it'll be fine. What the hell's he know? Hopefully you're not beside me in a lane and I catch some of that stuff, because it ain't going to be pretty. You are my boys. If I see you in the pits and you're doing some shady shit like that and you're about to race my son, it ain't going to be pretty. Bottom line, you're putting my boy's life in your hands by running, cheaping out. There's some stuff you cannot, if you plan on racing, what's a set of brake pads and brake shoes? Adjust them upright. Or a heater hose or a radiator hose, or a catch can. If you ain't got that, shit, I've ran beer cans back in the day, Gatorade bottles, anything, And, nowadays that the tracks are getting pretty good at, catching like the overflows onto the tracks, stuff like that. But yeah, it's just crazy, that you have to. So now we were at the transmission. The Driveshaft Loop, guys, it's a must. You don't want to be going 100 mile an hour down the racetrack and the U-joint breaks and, you pole vault in the air, and I'm going to put in Tyler's car, we're going to put the heavy duty U-joints in it, because his transmission is built up pretty good. It's going to be banging gears pretty hard. So I'm going to go with the race U-joints right off Jump Street. I ain't even messing around. He will have a drive shaft loop. Cody's the same way. He's got a drive shaft loop in his Camaro. His being a stick car, he needs it also. Which, like I said, I don't care if it's a 20-second car. That's just, you know, that's what I prefer. If you guys don't, if you got a 18-second car, you don't want a drive shaft loop, whatever. It's for your own good. I mean, I'm not just blowing smoke, guys. Everything I'm saying here is not only for my boys and their safety, it's for your guys' safety too. If you're one of these people that, that don't check that, check, see if you got slop in your U joints, or don't want to, spend $30 on a drive shaft loop. It's a peace of mind for me. When I'm in, once you go through your checklist, like I said, you go through your visual checklist, you make sure your hoses, all that, your fuel lines, everything's all good to go. And you can't tell me it ain't gonna make you feel better when you leave that line and knowing that, okay, shit happens. I mean, parts do fail. I mean, don't get me wrong. You could have brand new hoses, everything else, and shit still happens. I mean, it does. But preventative maintenance is a big part of catching little stuff that could save your life, guys, and it's true. And that's the main thing about this whole video is prevention and preventative maintenance. Like, you better believe this, guys. This summer, when we get ready to go to the track, me, Tyler, or Cody, we go to Sunday test and tune or whatever. Saturday, all day, we're going to have that car up in the air. We're going to be checking every nut, every bolt, torque converter bolts, bell housing bolts, motor mount bolts, tie rods, ball joints, torquing the lug nuts, everything. Right down the line, checking the fluids, hose clamps, everything. Making sure the catch can is secure, and everything. Making sure the brakes are adjusted right. You don't want to have too much back brakes to where, if you jam on them hard, if you're in a hard situation where you have to jam on them, you don't want the back brakes to lock up and kick you sideways either. Visually inspecting tires. I mean, my boys, they're going to feel like they're in the Army when they go to the track, for the first couple times, because Sergeant Dad's going to be there, and but after that, it's going to be like automatic. Okay, we're going to go to the racetrack. We're going to have hot dogs and hamburgers on the barbecue on Sunday. Yeah, I can't. Your buddy calls, hey, you want to go out Saturday or do this? No, I can't. I'm going to be working on my car. We're going to the track on Sunday. So I can't do nothing Saturday. Saturday is all about preventative maintenance, And that's the way it's got to be, guys. And like I said, and like I said, and if you can't afford the harness bar, make sure your seat belts work properly and your door handles. This is another case I seen at the track. I seen a guy make a pass down the track. He pulls back into the pit, rolls down his window, reaches outside to grab the door handle to let himself out. What? Are you crazy? What if you got, what if, heaven's sake, hopefully it never did happen to this guy, but what if he caught on fire, guys, and he was burning up in that car? You think his mind's he's gonna have so much adrenaline from being on fire? That could be the difference between life and death. Making sure your door handle works properly to be able to get out of that car. Instead of having to roll down your window to open it from the outside. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. I've seen a lot of crazy shit. Excuse me, a little talking a little much here, and getting a little throat's a little dry. Hope it ain't that contravirus, huh? No, I'm good. But yeah, like I said, guys, this video, I don't want to let it go on forever. Then we're just how my family does it, how seriously I take this. I love racing. I'm hooked on it. I'm glad that my boys are into it, and I'm glad that they're pursuing it and going to have their own vehicles. You know, it's better than them all being alcoholics or drug addicts or whatever, you know. But, you know, there's, no matter what kind of sports you get into, you know, you got to be safe about it. You know, I don't care if it's downhill skiing. You know, you don't want to have, you know, half your buckles on your back of your boots, you know, split in half when you're downhill skiing, do you? Well, that's the way I feel about these race cars. You know, I don't want to have dry rotted tires or only front brakes, or you know, stuff like that, or no drive shaft loop. You know, it's all fun and it's addicting, but it ain't worth your life, guys. And hopefully by me making this video, maybe you know, it, you know, stirs up in other people's minds that is getting going, you know, just starting out, you know, that maybe don't have a mentor to teach them the ropes. Hopefully he sees this video and he makes a self note in his head. Okay, you know, I remember watching Herb on Michigan Muscle Car Garage. You know, he has a checklist that he does. He checks every nut, every bolt, all the hoses, and you know, he makes sure all the brakes are good, and no dry rotted tires. You know, that's the kind of people that I want to help. You know, there's not always a man figure in everybody's life, you know, that can teach them this kind of stuff. But that does not mean that they can't do this, you know. But you know, anyway, I don't want to rattle on anymore, guys. I just wanted to, you know, to make the second part of this video. And till next time, guys, be safe and keep them hot rods on the road. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye. And as usual, guys, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell for notifications on the next video. We'll catch you next time. Bye-bye.